Did people not care about adults dating minors years ago? My dad told me how his grandpa got engaged to his grandma when she was 11. And she initially refused to talk to him until he bought her girl dolls and shit. Back in the 80s, I knew a girl that started dating a guy in his 20s. Dude was the son of a rich guy. So her mom didn't care. She was 14 to 15 back when it started. At 16 he married her with her mom signing off. He moved her to his house. She rode the bus to school each day. Happy as a clam because she got married before any of us. He kept his word to the mom. Though, no babies until she graduated high school. She was pregnant shortly after. However, he put her through college. She became a nurse while raising 2 kids. Divorced him shortly after she got her first job. She still doesn't talk about that time. Adolescence is a relatively recent invention in human history. Society and expectations were different. My grandpa was 44 and my grandmother was 14 when they had my mom. 1957. Minor is different from country to country, and from century to century. I cannot speak for the rest of the world. But in the US, economics played a huge part in this, particularly in rural areas where having a large family was a benefit. Men would not marry until their 20s as they saved up to buy a plot of land or inherit it from their father. Once they were more financially secure, or at least as much as you can be in an agrarian society, you would marry. Marry a much younger woman would accomplish 2 things. Having a wife capable of bearing children longer, and her father would have one less mouth to feed. The development of better farm machinery and the economy moving from an agrarian one prior to World War I to being fully industrial by the end of WWII. Families no longer had to have 8 kids to survive. Education also became more of a premium following World War II, and it became the norm for kids to attend school beyond the 8th grade, which really created a concept of adolescence that was collectively understood. That understanding has grown even more as most studies have been done into the development of the human brain. Prior to the last decade, a 21-year-old dating a 17-year-old was frowned upon. But you would never have heard them referred to as a predator. It has probably only been in the past 5 years that I have heard the word groomer meaning someone other than the guy that trims my dog. It's all just cultural evolution. Edit. Fixed typo. Fact. You're actually all engaging in behaviors today that will be viewed as completely abhorrent in the future. One of my favorite movies is The Professional. Only in adulthood did I realize how uncomfortable the dynamic was between Leon and Matilda. I think we understand the development of the human brain more. 21 to 17 as reasonable age difference in the majority of countries. In America, we have coming of age, religious ceremonies from past cultures that are still around. Jewish kids have a bar mitzvah. Christians get confirmed. And it happens when they're about 12 years old, which also coincides with the approximate age most people start hitting puberty. A lot of our ancestors basically thought that once you were of sexually reproductive age, you were of age. There was no period between the ages of 12 to 18, or now 12 to 30, where people just mess around and do whatever they want. People got married and started having families. Keep in mind, child mortality was much higher and the average age of mortality was much lower than it is now also, so people felt a bigger need to get on with it, as it were. It's important to realize that groups of people haven't always been categorized very strictly by age before. What I mean is right now all the 5-year-olds go to school together. All the college-age kids live together, etc. In years past, different-aged people were much more heavily intermingled with each other. So likelihood of attraction and falling in love was a bit higher. But if you step out of your age group by just a few years now, everybody thinks it's very bizarre. I always wonder where the people writing these live. I mean, come on. If a 21-year-old would date a 17-year-old, nobody could seriously think he was a pedophile. 24 and 14, however, is pretty sick. Girls, women have been commodities. Not a human with equal respect and dignity as boys, men. We are still very much operating with this natural, underlying assumption. Well, women couldn't get credit in their name in the US until the 70s. It's 2022 and I can't get a hysterectomy for my endometriosis without my husband giving his permission, in addition to a doctor making sure that I'm not ever going to think about a baby. So it stands to reason that we only recently started giving a fuck about young girls being married off to old men. A 14-year-old who lived a hard, shitty life 100 years ago might have had more overall life experience. But that didn't mean she was mature enough to get railed by a 30-year-old every day to be his brood mare. It was wrong then, but zero fucks were given. You'll get the society was different back then as a catch-all excuse. The fact is that predators could easily exploit young women because those women had no advocates or any channel of refusal. While it was normal for a 32-year-old man to marry, bed, procreate with a 14-year-old girl 150 years ago, it has never been okay. The power dynamic that existed then was even greater than it is today. And the young woman was in no position to decline such an advance and was encouraged by people around her to accept it. It's fucked up. You won't hear people excusing away slavery or public executions as just the way it was nearly as often as you will for grown men sexually enslaving young women. But all three things are horrific and thankfully have been mostly rejected today. Edit. If this hurts your feeling because you refuse to accept that your dad or grandpa or great-grandpa was a scumbag, you're part of the problem and you lack the emotional capacity to face reality. It's an opportunity for introspection and emotional growth. Take it and do those things. People were expected to marry when they became useful to society and independent enough to support a family. For men, that was viewed as 14 plus X years of training, as most professions required a few years of apprenticeships or other training. For women, that was viewed as 14. It doesn't require training to become childbearing. Now, we hopefully view women as more than just walking wombs, so that created a space for adolescence to become a time for growing up for both genders. I know a 19 to 21M. I'm not sure who dates a 14F and they have been together for 2 years. The mother of the girl knows it and allows. I have never been so repulsed by something in my life. My grandparents got married at 16. Culture shifts. Yeah, it's very strange. My parents dated when my mom was 16, he was 26. They got married at 17. Mom. And 27. Dad. Ironically, my mom and dad didn't want me to date until I was 18. Woman shrugging, woman shrugging, woman shrugging like WTF. As I got to 16, they both saw how small, looked like a child I was. I got to 27, they saw I was still young to decide for my future. Ew. I have an uncle who was 60 and married a 13 years old. Around 2008-ish in Mexico. What a disgusting of a man. They have like 2 or 3 kids now. But EU 21 and 17, is that big of a deal? Wouldn't condemn that. 24 and 14 on the other hand is bizarre.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.